This story takes place 27 years after the First Corporate War. The Nest by Sean Carrière. Chapter 20. With the massive cash counter finally free of its base, Kyle and Bench Press tied a rope around one end of it. Kyle then handed one of the two crank winches to his medic, before explaining his plan to get the damn thing up top and into position. Bench Press nodded his understanding before securing the bulky, shoebox-sized winch onto his belt, opposite from his taser. Kyle kept hold of his own crank and grabbed some extra rope before making his way upstairs. Bench Press took firm hold of his rope with both hands and pulled. With a surge of mighty medic muscle, the thick 12-meter-long plank fell off its frame and crashed down on the marble floor. Then, like a cartoon caveman, Bench Press dragged the countertop along the floor and out the front doors. Before the big man had dragged the countertop all the way out and into the narrow parking lot between the bank and its next-door neighbor, Kyle had already secured ropes to the bank's roof and rigged a pulley system with the crank winch at its center. Kyle tossed the end of a rope down to Bench Press and told him to tie it near the middle of the long plank. Bench Press did as he was instructed, and Kyle then told him to take the rope he'd used to drag the countertop out of the bank and tie it near its opposite end. Back down in the small parking lot, Bench Press tied his rope near the end of the countertop and tossed the other end of the rope all the way up to Sam, who was already on the roof of the neighboring building. The team's medic then made his way inside the neighboring building through the ice cream parlor on its ground floor. The big man soon found the stairs in the back. Up on the roof of the bank, Kyle wasted no time and cranked his winch like an incel on National Fap Day. Meanwhile, Sam and Bench Press secured their own pulley system over on their own rooftop and were soon working their own crank winch. 3/4 of an hour later, with nearly a third of the plank teetering from the edge of the bank's roof, Bench Press and Sam could finally use leverage and simple swing action to yank their end of the countertop over onto their ledge. Luckily, the boys pulled the whole thing off on the first try. After all, getting the thick plank of hardwood up top and working it into place had taken lots of cranking, struggling, sweating, cursing, and swearing. Yet, the team had their makeshift bridge in place before the western sky had even begun to darken.
"Hang on, boss,"
Sam said over his suit's radio.
"I'll walk over to your side."
"Stay put, Sam,"
Kyle ordered.
"I'll check the bridge myself."
Kyle knew Sam still felt shitty for not informing them earlier about the rainstorm west of their position, and the breacher obviously wanted to make it up any way he could. But Kyle was old school, and he'd never ask a member of his team to take a risk he wouldn't.
"Bench Press, go relieve Laura,"
Kyle ordered as he stepped onto the former cash counter. Bench Press acknowledged the order and made his way down the stairwell into the neighboring building. Sam remained up on the roof of the neighboring building and watched as his boss carefully stepped out onto their makeshift bridge. Kyle had never been comfortable with heights, and it was a long way down, but he was more afraid of losing his team's respect. The young bounty hunter scooted and dragged his feet along the smooth, narrow plank at a decent pace, not looking down and desperately trying to ignore the shakiness in his knees. As he approached the middle of their bridge, Kyle heard the wood creaking and felt it bend under his weight. This gave the young bounty hunter a mini heart attack. Even Slick watched from his covering spot near the front of the bank's roof.
"Only one person crosses this thing at a time,"
Kyle thought to himself.
"No more weight than that."
As he moved past the halfway point of their cash counter bridge, Kyle could feel it begin to straighten and stiffen again under his feet. The young bounty hunter sped his scoots up and was soon stepping onto the neighboring rooftop. Sam patted Kyle on the back as they looked at what they'd just built. Unwisely, Kyle peeked down at the small parking lot 4 stories below. This caused the young bounty hunter an instant flash of nausea. Gritting his teeth and ignoring his churning stomach, Kyle walked away from the roof's edge and into the building.